Possible spoiler warning. While I try not to give away too much of the story in this video, there may be instances of light spoilage, like potato salad left in the fridge long enough to not make you sick, but taste just a little off. Released in 2021, Scooby-Doo The Sword and the Scoob is the 35th Scooby-Doo animated film released direct-to-video. This time around, the gang find themselves in the north of England, visiting the land of Shaggy's ancestors in a town called Norville or Morgania. They find themselves welcomed by a town appearing to prepare for a festival, but soon get wrapped up in the usual supernatural shenanigans as they are whisked away back in time to the days of King Arthur and Camelot, forced to do battle with knights, the evil Morgan Le Fay, and a fire-breathing dragon. The time travel plot device pretty much telegraphs the end of the mystery so that only the youngest of Scooby fans will likely be surprised at the resolution. But it's the journey, not the destination, and this is easily one of the more entertaining of the newer Scooby-Doo direct-to-video releases. The story isn't anything special, as it once again retcons the background of one of the Scooby characters to force the gang into a specific situation. Here, it's making Shaggy the scion of a long line of English knights and a town with an obvious secret they want to keep from him. But there are more humor and meta references than usual to reward the keen-eyed viewer for paying attention. Production-wise, the animation is on par with previous releases and actually better than some of the later series, especially the problematic Guess Who. Most characters are kept on model, but the animators did seem to take a lot of shortcuts. Sure, the Scooby-Doo franchise has always kept costs down by reusing animation and backgrounds, but it's a bit more egregious this time around. Near the end of the film, it's like the animators suddenly found themselves running out of time and started reusing entire cuts. In addition to repeated animation, they also seem to copy and paste a lot of the background characters and crowd scenes, with this one being easily the laziest as they simply mirrored almost everything, including the food. With The Sword and the Scoob not being a mere cynical cash grab by the studio, all the voice actors we know and love return, with Frank Welker once again voicing both Fred and Scooby, Grey Griffin voicing Daphne, as well as the film's villain Morgan Le Fay, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and Kate Micucci as Velma. Micucci seems to get dragged a lot online, with a lot of people wanting Mindy Cohn to return, and while I agree that Cohn was terrific, Micucci does a very good job as well and doesn't deserve all the hate. So stop it! As for the obligatory guest roles, we have two this time around, Nick Frost and Jason Isaacs. Frost, sometimes known as Simon Pegg's better half in the Cornetto trilogy, plays Merlin the Magician, while Isaacs performs King Arthur. Isaacs also voiced Admiral Zhao, the principal antagonist in Season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Grey Griffin voiced Azula in that same series as well, making The Sword and the Scoob a sort of reunion of Airbender villains, except the two of them never actually had any scenes together on Airbender apart from the silent flashback scene here. Now let's get into all the Easter eggs, pop culture references, and other callbacks. At least the ones I noticed. Bear in mind this is not a comprehensive list, and it's likely many of these might seem obvious to some, but it occurred to me while watching this with my 20-year-old daughter that despite her history of Scooby fandom, there were still plenty of references she didn't get. No one is omniscient, so I'm approaching this list with that in mind. Thundar the Barbarian was an actual cartoon from the early 1980s produced by the late Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, the same duo who created Scooby-Doo. Steve Gerber was also credited with creating Thundar along with Jack Kirby, but neither one of them got any acknowledgement at the end of The Sword and the Scoob.
There's a creature on the wing!
This scene is yet another homage, or parody, of the famous Twilight Zone TV series episode, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which was also featured in the Twilight Zone theatrical film.
A real-life monster here in my hangar. I can't believe you kids caught it.
Not an it, Mr. HB. I can't thank you kids enough. But I still don't know how you figured it out.
Mr. HB here is probably a combination of William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, the original producers of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? The character of Mr. B in What's New Scooby-Doo was a similar tribute to Barbera.
Small towns are weird. Remember that time you dyed your hair blonde and everyone in that little northeastern town was talking about it?
Oh yeah, being blonde was definitely not more fun that day.
And then they all turned into fish people and tried to eat us.
That's less of a small town thing than it is a Scooby Gang thing.
This one bugs me. The detail given here is clearly alluding to something, but I can't figure out what it is. I've narrowed it down to two possibilities, but neither one completely fits. H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth features someone getting chased by fish people in a small Massachusetts town. H.P. Hatecraft from Mystery Incorporated was clearly a Lovecraft analog, but the only reference to blonde hair in the original story is the mention of some sparse yellow hairs on one of the fish people. The only other thing I can think of is an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that featured people being turned into fish creatures. Buffy was played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was blonde, and the actress played Daphne in the 2002 live-action Scooby film. Not to mention that Buffy and her friends were also jokingly called the Scooby Gang. But Buffy was set in California, not the Northeast. The TV Tropes entry for The Sword and the Scoob says the scene is referencing one of the lesser live-action films, Curse of the Lake Monster, but that can't be right because as far as I can determine, that film didn't feature a blonde Daphne, and it wasn't the townsfolk being turned into fish people trying to eat them.
I don't know, Scooby-Doo. Are you getting that same sort of haunted vibe as I am?
Doesn't everything give you the haunted vibe?
It's called managing expectations.
That bust is Graham Chapman's version of King Arthur from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Look familiar?
This seems to be some kind of storybook.
Since I'm one of the very few people on the planet who doesn't speak Latin, I had to run this text through Google Translate, and this is the best I could manage. In former times, he was there in the name of the dog with the unknown. Then again, traveling through time and space on the ground, King Arthur. A friend of the king and the dragon did war, and third because it does not actually know what he should not see. We will keep watch at the same time as all the rest is already finding out the research. Enjoy moving pictures for a long time. If you rearrange the text a bit to account for syntax, it's not too far off from the events of the film. Here are all the sources for the time travel montage sequence.
He is like your dad, a big meanie.
The unwashed common people don't seem to like him very much. Oh my gosh, you're right, Daff.
This is possibly a callback to Fred's dad, Mayor Jones, from Mystery Incorporated, who was eventually revealed as a villain in that series. And kind of a jerk to the gang most of the time.
Cede the throne to me, son of Uther Pendragon.
Gray, I love you. But Pendragon?
I, Arthur Pendragon.
You said it yourself, Daphne. Science fiction. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That's one of the 3 laws of future technology coined by famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke.
And if we're responsible for the legend, then we have to do exactly what it said, or otherwise we'll mess up the timeline, which could cause us to cease to exist. Or worse, the whole universe may implode in a quantum paradox.
Velma's paradox warning is similar to the one Doc Brown gives in the second Back to the Future film.
The encounter could create a time paradox, the results of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe.
I look at you guys and I just see 011101110. Daphne.
One might be tempted to translate those numbers from binary, but Daphne gave 9 digits, which is 1 too many. However, if you stop at the 8th, it's a letter W.
Hand me your phone. Look! As long as the lock screen picture stays the same, then it means we haven't changed the timeline.
This is another Back to the Future illusion where Doc and Marty use a photo to measure the damage done to their timeline.
Hear ye, hear ye! Presenting Sir Norville of Crystal Covia and his entourage.
Like I, Sir Norval of Crystal Cove.
Yeah.
Crystal Covia, do present myself before thy king.
Crystal Covia?
This is a welcome callback to the gang's hometown of Crystal Cove from Mystery Incorporated. Scooby-Doo's origins aren't always kept consistent throughout the films and series, so it's nice to see established locations crop up from time to time. Fred's medieval costume looks a lot like his cosplay outfit from an episode of What's New Scooby-Doo. The ascot was missing in the latter, but that famous piece of Fred's wardrobe was not part of his character design for that series.
And I like to put you under the spell of a beast from 1500 years in your future. The Hoagie. Scooby, let's make history.
Per the dialogue in The Sword and the Scoob, the gang estimates having been sent back in time between 1500 to 1600 years, putting the events of this part of the film roughly between the 5th and 6th century. Looking at this table should have made Velma, the resident Scooby-Doo gang know-it-all, extremely suspicious. Grapes wouldn't be grown in England for another 500 years, while orange carrots wouldn't be cultivated for almost another 1,000. The lettuce is probably okay for that time frame, but tomatoes weren't grown in England until the late 16th century. And if that cheese is Swiss, then it's problematic because Swiss cheese also wasn't invented for another 1,000 years. Apples were a thing in the 5th century, but they would not have looked like that because those are clearly modern versions grown after centuries of engineering. Regardless, fruit, even if it was fresh, was generally seen as peasant food and probably would not have been served to a king or his guests. Velma.
I love your knife holder. Very rustic.
That sound effect was made most famous by The $6 Million Man, a science fiction series from the 1970s featuring a cyborg secret agent.
It's me! I'm Merlin.
Merlin?
Merlin? Where? Yes, me again. I'm Merlin the Magician, master of knowledge and mystical secrets.
As mentioned earlier, Merlin is voiced by Nick Frost, with whom I share the exact same day and year of birth. Well, that's significant to me.
F*** you. I can live my own life in my own way if I want to.
There's a whole arsenal down there to choose from.
This chanting is one of the ways fans cheer on the Arsenal Football Club in England. That's soccer for us unwashed Americans.
Fine, I guess. Sir Lancelot.
Most versions of the Arthurian legend contain a love triangle between Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot.
Merlin?
Oh, hello.
Is Merlin a member of the Illuminati?
Anybody want peanut?
No more rhymes now, I mean it!
Anybody want a peanut? Yeah!
Abraca, whatever fantasy nerds say.
After being taken under Merlin's wing, Velma is dressed suspiciously similar to another famous sorcerer's apprentice.
Death catch!
This montage is probably as good a time as any to point out that plate mail like that was still a good 1,000 years in the future. Velma.
Stand back.
Come on, Velma, there's literally a pizza on that table!
But the photo on the phone.
Forgot to charge it. It just went dead.
Technically, that was Daphne's phone Velma had been holding on to all this time, so it was really Daphne's fault for not charging it.
I got even more suspicious when Arthur said demon dogs, one of Thundar's catchphrases.
You know, you say the same lines for 30 years. They're hard to shake.
Demon dogs really was one of Thundar the Barbarian's catchphrases.
All she has to do is mail that deed and the town is hers. We have to stop her.
That's not how that works. Sure, most of the adults watching this probably know better, but for any of you impressionable kids looking forward to a life of crime, real estate fraud is trickier than you might think.
Lords of Light, that was fun!
Lords of Light is also a Thundar catchphrase.
Fly true, my beauty!
Let's hope no one in town gets their light shut off because the local electric board didn't receive their check in the mail. Overall, The Sword and the Scoob is an enjoyable film and definitely worth watching. Unfortunately, like all the other more recent Scooby-Doo direct-to-video films, it's only available on DVD and not Blu-ray, so if you want an HD version, you'll need to use a streaming service. Again, I want to stress that all the Easter eggs and other callbacks and references I pointed out in the video are just the ones I noticed or considered significant, and this video should not be considered quintessential. It's even possible my interpretation of some of what was mentioned is erroneous. Feel free to point out anything you think I missed in the comments below, especially if you can pin down that whole blonde Daphne being chased by fish people thing. That's really bugging my daughter and me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. There is more Scooby-Doo related content on my channel, and let's face it, if you're here, you're likely a Scooby fan. I also cover other subjects, so please check them out as well.